welcome into your Wednesday episode of Pitch Talk with Dave, Wednesday, February the 12th. Good morning, everybody. We had a great night of college basketball to recap, as well as some headlines throughout the NBA, but we'll start in college basketball with the game of the night. Kentucky playing host to Tennessee. Tennessee came into this one as a slight road favorite. This was neck and neck down the stretch, but Kentucky pulled ahead late, closing the game on a 17-4 run over the final 5 minutes. And the Wildcats of Kentucky needed this big-time win there, and that will officially lock them into a tournament bid, as year one under Mark Pope is very successful so far for the Kentucky Wildcats. Over in Starkville in the SEC, the Florida Gators winning 81-68, and that score makes it seem closer than it actually was. Florida dominated this one, especially in the second half, really jumped out on Mississippi State, got it on them big, and never looked back. Mississippi State was actually leading by 1 point at the half, 34-33, but Florida came out rolling in the second half, winning this one by 13 points. A couple of other top 10 teams in the SEC, Auburn taking care of business on the road at Vanderbilt, 80-68. This one was close heading into half. Heading into the start of the second half, Auburn pulled away big time there. Alabama not as close with Texas, winning by 23 points, 103-80 in Austin. Big time performances in both the Crimson Tide and the Tigers. They set up their 1-2 date on Saturday, a big-time game coming there. College game day there in Tuscaloosa, of course. We'll have a bigger preview on that later in the week. Number 8, Texas A&M, a big second half to lead to a 16-point victory for the Aggies. Georgia led 32-23 at halftime. Texas A&M wins the second half by 25 points, wins the game by 16 points. Great showing for the A&M Aggies. Georgia win it without a bucket there for quite a long time. Can't do that against a team like Texas A&M. They're looking like a 2 seed right now. Over to our other ranked matchup of the night in the Big Ten. Michigan winning 75-73 over number 7 Purdue. Big time win for Michigan. They now sit in first place by themselves of the Big Ten. Great to see for the Wolverines. Once again winning 75-73 over the Boilermakers. Staying in the Big Ten, Indiana, a massive upset win. Their tournament hopes and dreams were looking dead, but a big win for the Hoosiers. 71-67 over the Michigan State Spartans in East Lansing as well. Can't really ask for a much bigger win in the Big Ten, that's for sure. Indiana, once again, 71-67. They're now sitting in position to be in position as far as the tournament goes. And speaking of in position to be in position, the Kansas State Wildcats winning 73-70 over Arizona. They've won 6 straight games. Doug McDaniel leads the way with 24 points. Kansas State, they were dead in the water just a little while ago. They've won 6 straight games now, sitting at 13-11. They'll travel out to BYU on Saturday night. In the Big East, UConn goes on the road to Creighton, takes down the Blue Jays 70-66. Liam McNeely, what a performance. 38 points, 10 rebounds. Really outplayed Ryan Kalkbrenner, and that doesn't happen very often. But Liam McNeely is one of those guys. He is the guy for UConn this year. He looks terrific. UConn, a big-time, much-needed win by 4 points, 70-66. A great quad one result for the Huskies. Over into the NBA, Toronto on the road at Philadelphia, winning 106-103 to drop Philly to its worst record of the year, that being 13 games below 500, currently sitting at 20-33. At some point, you've got to kind of hang it up. You've got to be worried about health concerns. Nick Nurse said he's concerned with something with Tyrese Maxey. Joel Embiid has voiced that he needs another knee surgery and a long recovery to be able to get back to close to 100%. This might be the time to do it. If I'm the Sixers right now, I'm considering hanging it up, trying again next year, because at this rate, not only are you probably not going to make the playoffs, but you're definitely not competing even if you make the playoffs. So if I'm the Sixers here, I'm hanging it up. Toronto, they recently added Brandon Ingram, extended him yesterday, gave him $40 million a year over the next 3 years. Great win for Toronto, 106-103. Over in Indiana, New York, the Knicks winning 128-115. Josh Hart puts up 30 points. Karl-Anthony Towns scores 40 points as the Knicks win this one by 13. Out west, the Memphis Grizzlies taking on the Phoenix Suns in Phoenix. Ja Morant leads the way with 26 points. Kevin Durant had 34, but it was not enough. He reached 30,000 points last night in the losing fashion. Memphis winning 119-112. Looking at some NBA games on the slate tonight, an ESPN doubleheader starting in Boston at 7 p.m. Eastern. The Celtics hosting Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs. A fun one here as we get close to All-Star break between Tatum and Wembanyama. Should be a good one to watch. Boston, 8.5-point favorites here. Our second game of our doubleheader in Dallas, the Golden State Warriors coming into town taking on the Dallas Mavericks, the very injury-riddled Dallas Mavericks. The Warriors, with their new addition of Jimmy Butler, sit as 4.5-point favorites here over the Mavericks. This one, 9:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. And our League Pass game of the night comes at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on NBA League Pass. Atlanta travels to New York, travels to Madison Square Garden to take on the New York Knicks. And this one, I'll be completely transparent, is the game of the night because it's Trae Young in the Garden. Always cinema, always cinematic here when Trae Young travels to New York. The Knicks, 8.5-point favorites here. And you know Trae Young takes this personally. You know it's going to be a fun performance from him. We'll see if the rest of the Hawks can line up with him and they can take down the Knicks in New York. Once again, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on NBA League Pass. And a quick headline from the NBA before we switch back over to college basketball to preview tonight's slate. The Hornets have officially filed a motion to dispute the Lakers vetoing their trade. The trade between LA and Charlotte that sent Mark Williams over to LA, and the Lakers sent back Dalton Knecht, Cam Reddish, a first-round pick, and a pick swap. So a massive one there. We'll see what the NBA does about the dispute. I doubt anything will come of it. I'm sure LA has every right to veto that trade, but just something to keep an eye on there. Charlotte did file a motion to dispute that trade being rescinded, so we'll see what the league does there. We'll see what Adam Silver does there. But let's get to tonight's slate in college basketball. We've got some great ones on the docket tonight. Starting in the Big East, the Villanova Wildcats playing host to the St. John's Red Storm. Number 9, St. John's, sitting as a 3.5-point road favorite. This one at 6 p.m. Eastern on Fox Sports 1. A couple of good ones in the SEC tonight, and a doubleheader on SEC Network starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. Ole Miss on the road at South Carolina. Ole Miss sits as a 4.5-point road favorite. One of these teams coming into Columbia, South Carolina is going to lose. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know when it's going to be, but somebody's going to lose in Columbia, South Carolina. Why not Ole Miss on a Wednesday night? I like South Carolina to win this game over the Rebels of Ole Miss. Ole Miss, however, is a 4.5-point road favorite. And our second game of the night on SEC Network at 9 p.m. Eastern, Oklahoma, the Sooners traveling up to Columbia, Missouri to take on the Tigers. Mizzou sits as an 8.5-point favorite at home. I like Mizzou to roll over them there. And your mid-major game of the night comes at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. Chattanooga travels to Birmingham to take on Samford. The Bulldogs sitting at 19-6. Chattanooga sitting at 17-8. Samford a 5.5-point favorite in this one. These two teams are tied for first place in the Southern Conference. As we know, both of these teams have made a little bit of noise in the tournament in the past. And so these two teams, along with UNC Greensboro, are going to be ones to watch come March. If you're looking for some great mid-major action to check out, that'd be the one I would watch there. Chattanooga and Samford, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN+. And that will do it for today's episode of Hoops Talk with Dave. I'm your host, Dave Smith. Thanks for joining us here. Be sure to follow me on X at Dave Smith NBA. I'll be back tomorrow morning to break down all the action that takes place tonight, as well as preview another great slate tomorrow. Tomorrow, the final regular season day before the All-Star break in the NBA. I'm sure there'll be a lot to talk about. I'll catch up with you tomorrow.